Welcome to first grade ELA Tidbits. I'm Amanda Smith, your curriculum specialist. Let's start by taking a quick look at where we are going for the week of September 22nd. In lessons 5 and 6, we finish up our close read aloud with The Most Magnificent Thing, and then in lessons 7 and 8, we begin a series of focused read alouds with the book The Little Red Pen. This is the text that students will use in their end of unit assessment. We continue working on the reading literature standards from last week, but we also begin focusing on RL 1.4 and W 1.2 in these lessons. The work students are doing this week focuses on RL 1.1, RL 1.3, RL 1.7, and SL 1.1. Here you can see where RL 1.3 shows up in the learning targets throughout the year, and that's the standard that we're going to spend time unpacking again this week. RL 1.3 is one of our high leverage or most critical standards for these lessons, so let's unpack it together. This standard asks students to describe character, setting, and major events using key details. That means students need to move beyond surface level retelling and really attend to story grammar, who the characters are, where and when the story takes place, and the sequence of major events, including the challenge or problem the character faces. To demonstrate mastery, students must consistently and independently use details from both the text and the illustrations. For characters, that might mean naming feelings, words, or actions. For settings, they should be able to tell you when and where the story happens. For events, they should be able to recount them in order and explain how a character responds, like what did the character do and why it matters. It's important to note the difference between a key detail and an extra detail. Key details explain who, where, or what happened and move the story forward. The question stems on the slide show us how this looks in practice. For example, how is the girl feeling now pushes students to describe emotions using evidence from illustrations and text. What did the girl do on the last few pages requires them to describe a character's actions in a major event. These are examples of how we bring the standard to life in lessons and assessments. RL 1.1, 1.3, 1.7, and SL 1.1 work together in these close read sessions as a cycle. Students first ask and answer questions about key details, RL 1.1. They then use those details to describe how characters act and respond in major events, which is 1.3. To do this, they draw on both the words and the illustrations, RL 1.7, and finally they share and refine their ideas in collaborative conversations, which is SL 1.1. Together, these standards build deeper comprehension and evidence-based discussion. Now that we have a better understanding of the standard, let's look at how it's assessed. In looking at the first grade standard-based report card rubric, we know that for students to reach mastery, they need to be able to describe character, setting, and major events consistently. This means that they transfer this work into other texts, not just this one text in isolation. Let's look at a few teacher and student actions for RL 1.3. In work time A, of the Lesson 5 narrative, the teacher facilitates a close read aloud session 3, and students practice applying RL 1.3 throughout the lesson. This lesson gives students an opportunity to notice the girl's response to her work when things go wrong. Students will discuss whether or not the girl is using the habits of character they have defined so far, and as with the previous lessons, they will have the opportunity to reflect on their understanding of the text and habits of characters by responding to an independent writing prompt. Here are a few examples of how students practice RL3 in conjunction with other standards we called out. Students answer text-dependent questions such as, what do you notice and how is the girl feeling now, to show that they can ask and answer questions about key details. RL 1.3, students describe what the girl does on these pages, getting mad, quitting, and they connect the details from the text to the character's actions. In RL 1.7, students point to illustrations. She has red cheeks, clenched fists, an injured finger, and connect them with words in the text to explain her feelings and actions. Now that we understand the teacher and student actions in Lesson 5, we can anticipate possible misconceptions and prepare just-in-time supports. If language learners struggle with the close read, then you can have them act out the events in the story and provide dictated lines for them to recite so they can practice using verbal language. If students struggle to connect the concept of habits of character to the events in the story, then you can prompt their thinking with yes or no questions and build on their answers. Thanks for joining me this week for the first grade Tidbits. See you back next week.